Before we get started, this video is sponsored by FaB Foundry, one of the first Flesh and Blood specialized game stores in the world, a pillar of the local FaB community in Portland, Oregon, a world tour organizer, and my personal favorite LGS. FaB Foundry is your one-stop shop for all things FaB related, whether that's singles, sealed product, playmats, sleeves, dice and tokens, especially featuring products from Metal FaB and Thai cards. FaB Foundry also offers a rewards program, which you can use to get store credit back on all your purchases. So please go check out FaB Foundries, support our local community in Portland, and use our promo code Flesh and Bad for a discount on your next singles order. Hey everyone, welcome back to more Flesh and Bad, and today we're going to be playing some Jarl. So it's been a little bit since we played our favorite Earth Ice Boy, and there have been quite a few developments. I think that for the most part, fatigue Jarl style lists are have been doing quite well, at least in like small tournaments and also at like larger events and stuff. So I think that currently, like, it seems like a lot of the Jarl builds are leaning a lot more kind of fatigue style. But I think that the fatigue style is kind of at least like not something I'm super interested in. And I also kind of like appreciate a lot of the Earth Ice cards. So I'm going to be playing a little bit of a kind of hybrid version between like a more Earth style Jarl and more kind of like fatigue style Jarl. So I want to kind of get into it. I did want to add like a little disclaimer before we get super far into it that I do think that there is a bit of tension between the Earth cards and also just like the fatigue game plan. Like, I think if you are trying to build the most competitive Jarl list, I think that there's a lot of good incentive to cut the Earth package because the fatigue package, like a lot of the time you want to be like blocking with your felling in the ground anyways. So like there is like a bit of tension between like your opponent not caring about 8 damage because they're at 40 life, and then you like taking a card out of the hand, like the worst card out of your hand is like not super appealing. But I do think that felling maybe has a little bit of merit, specifically into Gravy, who I think is going to be at least somewhat represented, especially at like more local level events, but at like also large tournaments. I think he's going to be probably like A tier, B tier, maybe somewhere on there. So the Fellings are mostly as a plan, like another backup plan for Gravy. One other thing to mention about like the Gravy matchup, so we're running 2 minus touch on the board. I think that for Gravy, maybe this wants to be like 3 minus touch, and then we like maybe trim on some random cards to kind of support that. I think that's also quite reasonable. But for now, I want to try to kind of like do a little bit of hodgepodge between the Earth Jarl and the Fatigue Jarl. So this is kind of like my initial starting idea. A lot of this is, I think, based on decks from like Jason Rolfe, like Pablo Ventura, and I think Olin, who I think some people know as Rob from like Purple Discord. Like they've also had a lot of like good success on Fatigue Jarl. So I'm gonna try to like experiment and try to like do like a little bit of hybrid between like that style of Jarl and more like the style of Jarl that I like to play. So main changes from this kind of style of Jarl is I'm trying to also like prepare for the upcoming like Verdance meta. I think Verdance is going to be like one of the decks to beat, depending on how well she does without Plume. I think she's still probably quite fine with it. But one added thing I want to add to the sideboard for a lot of these decks is Oasis. I think you might just need it, especially with how many like burn bears that deck has access to now. I think that Oasis can help stave off a lot of that damage, and I think it makes a lot of sense just even in kind of like the normal fatigue plan off like Tunic and stuff like that. I think there's a lot of good uses for Oasis, although it does typically like eat. It can sometimes be a little bit awkward, like with like Rampart, if you wanted to just like use Tunic for Rampart once and then you don't have like Tunic for Oasis. There's like a bit of tension with Oasis, but I think that for the most part I kind of enjoy it as like just a good value option into Wizards. And into the Verdance matchup, I also have some new tech. So I want to try 2 Poison Well on the sideboard. Basically, what you're trying to do with this, this is a quote from Rob, is basically you want to try to put it on Healing Pot like 3 and 4 is where you ideally want to put it. Yeah, so that's kind of like the rough idea of the deck. And this is kind of like the style I'm going to go. So yeah, with that, we're going to go ahead and get into some games. I did want to do some quick channel updates. So we're nearing 1,800 subs. Which is really awesome, and I want to thank y'all for that. So to kind of mark that random number occasion, we're going to be creating a little Discord, and the Discord is actually going to be something that's going to help us for the upcoming like 2K sub goal. So we have some fun ideas to planned, kind of planned or in the works, I guess, for when we get 2K subs. So thank you all again for your support. So we're gonna make a Discord. Again, you feel free to participate in it. We can put your memes and your all thoughts in the chat, and we'll definitely be interested to like hear them and stuff. But yeah, we'll put a link to the Discord on the screen, like right around now, or maybe even before or whatever. But yeah, with that, we're gonna go ahead and take this Jarl list for a spin and get into some games. All right, we're gonna be playing against a Kayo. So in general, I think this is more of a fat deck matchup. It's actually kind of funny because of the sideboard cards, the deck isn't really that fat, but I guess we can actually bring in the Midas Touch as well. And let's run Balance, and I think Rampart's also fine. Let's run it like this, see how it goes. I don't know if you need Sledge in this matchup. I kind of doubt it. Like, you could probably actually get away with Sledge because the Rampart's maybe not as valuable. But I think I still like the Rampart in this matchup. All right, Clean 60 versus R66. So it seems pretty good. Opponent will be starting out with the E-Strike. Yep, seems good to me. Let's go ahead and actually just give up this first felling. So the theory behind at least this stack, actually, we could just give up the felling by itself also. Let's just give up the cranial, I guess. Let's do this so that we can block the felling on the next thing. If they don't end up sending more damage, then that's fine, I think. Obviously, you have some life gain here as well, which is nice. All right, starting off with Cast Bones. Only for 5, though, which is not the end of the world, I'd say. Almost barely have Decompose, or we almost got pretty close to getting Decomposed there, but not quite. So I think here we're just going to do E-Strike and a Crumble. There is like a 50-50 chance they snipe my felling with it, but I think if I get a scaling out of them this early, I think I'm okay with that. There's not really a ton of opportunities actually for them to use scaling in this matchup, so if they use it on the E-Strike here, I wouldn't blame them, although it is a bit early in terms of just like popping equipment for Frostbite value, obviously. I think here we're going to try to take out the Scabs, because I think that's, over the long game, probably the most threatening card. I think we'll go ahead and then just sit on this felling for a bit. All right, no Earth cards here, but that's fine. The Crumble will be going to the yard, so we don't actually need an Earth card yet. All right, I think this will be a decent opportunity to just block a bit here. I don't actually know if we need to necessarily send the felling here. There's also almost no world they're running any Pummel, right? Like, I've seen like Pummel Reinhardt, but like Pummel KO I feel like is definitely outside the bounds of what I would expect. Let's I think I'm kind of just like giving like 11 here. There's also maybe merit to just like blocking the Terrace under, but I don't know if that's super necessary. That's kind of a surprisingly weak turn from our Kayo friend here. I almost wonder if they should have rolled Scab just to have the ability to go wide, although there is obviously a risk in doing that. And I think we'll just take the opportunity here to get our felling off. So let's actually kind of like talk about why I still put felling in this deck. And if you compare this deck to like other fatigue Jarls, like a lot of the fatigue Jarls have just like cut this card entirely, which I think like does make a bit of sense. Oh, they actually get around the felling here quite nicely. So now I guess the question is, do we want to decomp? But I think we still probably do. Might as well just turn future decompose on. But back to felling, right? Like, I think that it does make a lot of sense for fatigue Jarl lists to be cutting felling. I'm kind of still attached to it for Gravy specifically, because I don't think Gravy's as dead as a lot of people make it out to be. I think a lot of the fatigue Jarls are compensating for that with like triple Midas Touch with it, which I think is also like reasonable. But I do foresee some resurgence in like Whaler. I think this is actually maybe a good opportunity to use the Rampart here as well. I do see some kind of resurgence of Whaler in a lot of the Gravy lists I've been playing into. So I wouldn't be entirely surprised if that ends up being more of a trend as like triple Whaler. So that's what the fellings are mainly for, is just to like have more insurance, because I think currently like the big ways you deal with Whaler are E-Strike and Midas Touch, and Fearless Confrontation obviously can be quite rough into that. All right, following up with a Wild Ride, discarding a No Fear. I think we're pretty okay with this. Now we get a good excuse to just use the Oasis. And go ahead and pass back. I think we're just going to attack the Sigil and Arsenal just to see if we can bait out like a CNC or a Send Packing or something. Take this game nice and slow. I do think, for what it's worth, that Jarl at least feels pretty favored in this matchup. Also, I just... Wait. When did this happen? When did they get 2 Bloodrush Bellows and Banish? Oh, was it Wait, what was that from? Was it from a Beast Within? Oh my god, did I like completely miss that? That's kind of hilarious. Well, I feel a little bit sorry for our Kayo friend here. So I'm assuming that this is probably just discard, making agility, agile windup. Oh, we'll go ahead and block anyways. We're still covered for CNC purposes. Okay, mighty windup instead. But yeah, that is pretty brutal on the KO side there. I didn't even like notice that. I barely even like pay attention to Beast Within half the time. Just because I'm normally like assuming that it's gonna hit or whatever. I think here let's maybe just take the opportunity to set up the root bound in Arsenal. We can actually pull Tunic and Rampart here if we also want to. Let's not use the Tunic though. Let's go ahead and use the Rampart, then pull Tunic in response. Get our nice little 1 point of value there. I do think KO does tend to be a deck that just like fatigues itself really badly. So that might be what we're seeing here. I do feel like you also have to roll scabs a lot in this matchup to like kind of get ahead. Like it almost feels like sometimes you're better off just like rolling scabs, and even if you go to 1 and pass, that's preferable to like sending just like a 1 attack turn or something. All right, starting on the E-Strike. I think we might actually just take the opportunity to root bound here, not decompose, because we already hit the amount of decompose we want to do. So let's go ahead and use it here, and then maybe also just use like shelter or something. I think there's also maybe an argument to just not decompose. I think there's also maybe an argument to not use the root bound there, instead just use an Autumn's Touch from hand, because we probably want to block with these anyways. But I guess it's not going to matter much here. Go ahead and block with the Autumn's Touch, Arsenal of Sync. I do know that some people don't like this style of Jarl, and I kind of can see why. I do think it might be the best first, like the more fatigue slanted Jarl lists, I think are oh, excuse me. I think the more fatigue slanted Jarl lists actually have like a little bit of an easier time into certain matchups. Like I think like this list like maybe has like the best chance in 2 burdens, although I think that matchup's like pretty bad, and like you can also like fatigue Gravy a lot of the time as well. So we don't really care about the agility token here, or its quicken token. So I think we'll just take the opportunity to just block a little bit. Let's go ahead and clear our arsenal so that we're not playing into like send packing or CNC. Well, I've seen 1 CNC so far. I think we might have seen 1 in pitch at some point. Oh, realize I'm also off camera. Let's go ahead and just sync here. I think we're actually maybe getting rid of like Frozen here. Oh, Pillars is not a bad draw. Assuming they have a follow-up here. But yeah, I feel like this deck has a lot of nice advantages into the current meta. Like just fatigue is always just very, very powerful, especially when metas get very like tempo oriented and you're trying to run like the best numbers but not thinking about like fatigue value necessarily. So I think here I actually don't want to use the D-React because I want to try to save it for pulping, which we know that they're on. Let's maybe try to sit on this React. And I think on our turn we're actually just gonna like Everbloom Sigil. Actually probably don't even need to Everbloom. Might as well just block with it, right? Like we can actually just buy back the Everbloom in the late game with other Everbloom life, so I don't think there's a real reason to like sit on it. Like we're getting 3 value here as opposed to getting like 1 value, plus some deck value. So we only have 1 Blood Rush to worry about, and maybe like 1 or 2 Cast Bones. But other than that, I think we're in pretty good shape. All right, let's go ahead and arsenal the Shelter here. Again, mainly just for pulping purposes. If they hit us with like a CNC, it might be a little bit awkward, but this deck does just block very well, so we're not super worried about that. All right, starting for 4. All right, let's go ahead and clear the arsenal, I think. So we're about halfway through our opponent's deck. We're also about kind of halfway through ours. I feel like we're doing a little bit better because we do have some pretty good late game. All right, setting up the Cast Bones for the full amount is definitely quite rough. So what options do we have to us here? I feel like maybe we just want to tank up as much as possible. So I'm kind of leaning towards just like pitching the Terrace under, and then sending the Glacial Footsteps and like arsenaling Oasis or something. I feel like Oasis is maybe the oh, what happened? Oops. Oh, that was weird. It was asking me to like pay for the Glacial Footsteps when I already pitched it. But yeah, I think we're gonna arsenal the Oasis here because Oasis with Tunic up is a lot safer against like CNC or sent packing than arsenaling the Sink Below is. Alright, not a bad hand. We can just block with the Oaken plus Oasis Sink and then maybe send Felling on the back of it. Alright, big Wild Ride. At least they're not making a ton of great use of the agility here. I think what we're actually supposed to do is maybe just block a little bit here. I want to try to see if I can go below them in life total so we can get an extra point of value out of the Oasis. So I think we'll just block with the Oaken here, take 9, and that should drop us low enough. Because we'll be taking 2 over, so we'll be at 26. I feel like Rally the Coast Guard is also another interesting one. I feel like I've seen this in like more than one KO list, but maybe not kept up to date on the latest KO developments. I don't fully understand this card. I guess getting the extra like +3 if you're running a lot of like 2 blocks and no blocks can make sense. Maybe that's the logic. So here I actually think I maybe want to just use Sink Below. We're still holding up Oasis in case they like end on disruption here. And if we want to play Felling, then we can just keep the Oasis in Arsenal. So we'd rather use the Sink Below from hand. All right, just finishing on the Claw. So I think this turn we're just going to sit on the Oasis and just send a little bit of Felling. So the Felling is kind of like interesting. I don't know if it's for like every matchup you want to be actively trying to send Felling. Like I feel like a lot of the time, so like I think the reason why a lot of fatigue lists cut Felling is because it's like you don't really want to be tempted to send it because blocking is basically your win con, right? I think that sort of makes sense. I still just think it's like a generically powerful card, and disrupting your opponent is always kind of good. Even like fatigue by disruption is like another form of disruption. Although the Felling disruption is like not as bad as like disruption by like Spinal Crush or like Chokeslam or whatever. But taking a resource out of your opponent does mean that they're able to convert their hands like less efficiently. That being said, you are taking like the least bad card out of your opponent's hand and just dealing like 8 vanilla damage is maybe not super impactful. I think there's pros and cons. Like I think I'm mostly running this card for like gravy purposes and just as like a very good like mid-range fatigue card in certain matchups. I think that's my logic at least. All right, coming with the Mandible Claw. I think this is a pretty decent opportunity to just use Oasis. I think we actually might want to just pitch for it instead of pulling Tunic, which would also let us use Oasis on another turn or on the next attack, whichever is better. So let's go ahead and actually pay into the Rampart here. I think we will pitch a blue and then just leave ourselves open to Tunicking if we want to. So we'll do the Oasis from Arsenal, throw it on the Mandible Claw and gain our extra little point of value. Stay nice and healthy here if we can. I think I'm fine just like giving up the Oaken. I don't think we need to use the Oasis here. Although, actually, they have used a lot of armor, so maybe it's actually fine to just get our 1 point of value here and arsenal the Oaken. It's like a little bit greedy. Like, it doesn't necessarily jive with our game plan, but I think that it does make sense in terms of like value if we can hit them with an Oaken ult. I think that has a pretty high rate of return. And we won't be able to Oaken here. One thing I also didn't mention is I don't think we've seen a ton of our like Ice Earth cards. I think we've seen 2 Crumble. So I guess we have seen at least half, right? So we saw 2 Crumbles. We have 1 Crumble still in the deck, and then potentially we have the Pulse as well. So I feel like we're pretty likely to at least draw into Pulse. I wasn't sure if we pitched the other Crumble at some point. It's also entirely possible. So here, what do we want to do? I I think maybe we'll just keep taking our little 1 point of value. Let's go ahead and pull Tunic, pay for it. And then I think we are maybe just rebounding here. The Earth package is like really interesting because like it's actually kind of bad in the fatigue game plan, if you think about it, because like you're having to pay a bunch of resources to get like a similar rate to like FaB Foundry, right? Where you like don't have to do a bunch of like weird setup and run a bunch of like the bad Earth cards to make it work. Still just think it's like more fun though than just like raw fatigue, like just like play I guess like just a bunch of generics and stuff. Or rather at least play like a couple class cards even if they're not as good. All right, let's go ahead and reveal that pulse. So Oaken should be hitting here, although we did see that they're on no fear, so they could have up to one more left in deck. I think I'm like kind of fine if I get no feared though. I don't know if I necessarily care about that. All right, seems like we're gonna connect with the Oaken here. Can't complain about that. We're also just sitting on balance too. We actually probably should have used the balance on their Blood Rush turn, but I think I just like wasn't paying attention. So that's on me. We definitely had like a pretty good opportunity to use it. All right, just coming in for 9. I don't really feel like we need to use the balance here necessarily. But let's just like pad our life total a little bit. I think that's fine. I feel like this block is like kind of bad, but also I don't want to just like randomly die, and maybe we'll get an opportunity to crack balance on a future turn. I feel like you could like I don't think this block necessarily makes sense. It's more of like a vibe block than anything. Let's hold on to Remembrance. We have plenty of good targets here, right? We have 2 Okens, Felling. We even have like an Everbloom if we want to just set that up. But yeah, I think this like balance block's like actually probably bad, now that I think about it. Maybe I just don't want to dip below 20. Or I guess I'm dipping below 20 anyways. Maybe I don't want to dip too far below 20. Alright, we'll go ahead and take our 3 damage here. That's fine. What we might end up doing here is like remembrancing back like 2 Okens. So let's go ahead and send it here. Like, let's do like 2 Okens and a Crumble. We still have 2 Everblooms left, so we can always buy back our Everblooms. Like I don't think there's like a pressing need to get Everbloom back in the deck right now. So maybe also an argument to just like getting another Felling. I feel like it doesn't matter a ton here. I feel like we're in a pretty advantageous position. Right, let's go in Remembrance. So here I have the 2 Okens. Grab those back and we'll grab the Crumble. I think that's like a little bit greedy. But yeah, maybe they see the writing on the wall there. Like I think that maybe you could also argue like there's like an interesting kind of tension in this deck between like the proactivity of Felling and like the mid-range value of Felling and like the core game plan, which is to block a lot. But I think like Felling is just like a nice failsafe card in certain matchups, and like also is just like numbers wise very very good, and also just like a good target for remembrance and stuff. I don't know. I still like want to try to find an excuse to like use Felling in this deck, but I do probably acknowledge that like a lot of the more fatigue Jarl lists benefit from dropping like the Felling in the Earth package. I'm just more so kind of trying to have a little bit of fun. All right, but let's see if we can get another one. All right, playing against the Florian, I think this matchup is like bordering on unwinnable. But we'll do our best here. So what do we want in Florian? Probably Coronet's fine. I mean, I don't foresee ourselves activating Coronet all that much, but we'll try the Normal Brutes. So this matchup is pretty rough for us. But we'll make our best effort here. I think we'll do like a light fat deck for the most part. I think it seems fine. So we do get the added benefit of blowing up Grasp in this matchup. However, the big problem is obviously now Germinate is quite rough. So figuring out how we're going to beat Germinate, I think, is the big problem. All right, start off with the Rune Chant, A-okay with me. And we can gain a bit of life here because Reaping Blade specifies you have to have more life, obviously. Unfortunately, can't use that sigil, though. So what do we want to do here? I feel like it just makes the most amount of sense to try to get the Crumble online. The earlier we can Crumble, the more, or the less damage we're going to take over the course of the game. So I think the Crumble here, obviously, Makes sense. It's too good, like, not to play. And then we can Arsenal Sigil, although we might not be playing that for some time. So Germinate, obviously being back, is quite rough. Fortunately for us, it looks like they're not on like the chance stacking Florian, and they're just kind of on probably like normal mid-rangey Florian, which I think I like as a deck more than just like the ultra react Florian. I feel like that deck is not very exciting to me. All right, starting out with seeds, A-okay with me. Florian did notably lose access to what's it called? Plume in this matchup. And I think Plume was sometimes a little bit scary. If they could Plume back like a Channel Millennium Tree, that could often result in a lot of chip damage. So here, I think we're just gonna like super overpitch here. Can we like hold on to the shelter? I think that's reasonable. But I think for the most part, we want the Oakenold on the bottom. Yeah, let's get rid of the Oasis for sure, and then I think just send in with the Sledge. We are obviously giving them potential decompose value here, but it does have Dominate, so they can't realistically block with more than like 2 cards here. So I think this swing still makes sense. All right, love to see a root down out of the way. If they're not decomposing with that, I feel pretty happy. Although they do have a second one. I guess I'm also not that upset about the second one, because that means that's 2 really good ways to decompose kind of out of the way. I think we're just going to keep holding on to the Sigil here. Given that they have Rune Chance, we're pretty much always able to control our life total a bit here. But yeah, Germinate is quite scary. So let's go ahead and take 2 damage exactly off these Rune Chants. We don't quite have Decompose here. We can also take the full amount and then like Everbloom some stuff back. I feel like that's not very exciting though. Let's go ahead and take our 2... Let's take like most of the damage here, I think. So I think we'll skip all the Rune Chants here. And then maybe just shelter... shelter on the Reaping. I guess it's also the same if we like discard shelter here. Maybe we'll discard just to be a little bit cheeky. But yeah, we're still taking the same amount of damage, regardless of whether we block or discard with it. So I think here my plan... So we can't decompose the Felling, which is fine. We can just like save that for later. I think my plan is to like Sigil plus Everbloom. The problem with that is obviously that we're not getting the 1 life off the Everbloom. I guess that's fine. So let's still do that then. We'll do both, even though the 1 life gain won't matter. But we'll still be able to get back a card. So let's put back our Crumble in the deck. And I think we're just going to sledge away our Felling for later. Still need to try to find our Frozen to Death if possible. Opponent's also on Tree, which is quite spooky. Tree is another one of those good threats, although I do like to see them blocking with it there. They have their own Everbloom, which they maybe are going to buy back like Arcane Seeds or something. I do think in general Florian is quite favored in this matchup, even if you can break grass super early. So I fully expect to go into this losing, although I still just probably kind of want the practice for upcoming like ProQuest and stuff. So let's maybe just take the opportunity to root bound here. We're not going to decompose with it, but I think that's still fine. And then we just send CNC. You can also like E-Strike CNC, but that also feels kind of aggressive. I just like the root bound here. If we get Face Purgatory, I think I'm like also fine with that. Seemed like our opponent got stuck on an all red hand, which makes sense that they blocked with like Rune Rager plus the tree there. All right. Oh, sorry. No E-Strike. We wanted to CNC instead, I guess. So it did unfortunately show them the E-Strike, but I think that's fine. If they want to discard my E-Strike with Face Purgatory, I think I'm kind of not upset about that. Right, just coming in with the Canopy Shelter. So Mike definitely could be scary on their turn, but I do like to see that we took their Rune Rager. I think that's a pretty good hit. Right, still no crumble yet, but it can take its time a little bit. Right, just gonna gain some life and maybe send the Reaping Blade. That makes sense. So I think here, honestly, what I want to do is just like send Sledge. In which case, maybe I just like block with like Cranial. I feel like the Cranial block maybe makes sense. Oh, I guess maybe we'll block with Shelter instead, because I did forget about the My token here, so we can get our full 4 value. Seems a little bit better. This is another one of those grindier matchups. Right, let's go ahead and E-Strike, go again. They could take the opportunity to face Purgatory here, but I think I'm still largely okay with that. Let's go ahead and then pull Tunic and send in the Sledge. So pretty nice turn for us. We are sitting on the Remembrance, and we don't really have a ton of high value targets just yet. Yeah, but Florian does have some scary things he can do in the end game with Germinate, which I think make this matchup quite rough. All right, we got the Bramble Spark. All right, another all-red hand I'd love to see. All right, just coming in with the Rune Ranger. I think this is fine for us. They will get to deal a little bit of damage, but not a ton. So we can actually just like pulse this if we really want to. I don't love using pulse. Like I'd rather pitch pulse most of the time, just to, like leave in the deck. But I feel like this is actually like a case scenario where we get a little bit of extra value if we use pulse. So I feel like it's maybe fine. We effectively get to block like one more, which is not nothing. Adds up over the course of the game, obviously. And I think here we're just like double pitching the Sledge just for the sake of it, or just for fatigue value, obviously. Seems like we've been drawing into just a lot of all-red hands, which is unfortunate from our opponent's side. Florian does have like a lot of good blues. I feel like they just haven't necessarily been seeing them. Like you have access to Everbloom, which is obviously great. You have access to Germinate now, which is great. A lot of good Earth blues specifically in Florian. Right. Gotta find her Frozen though. Very important. Although we are just staying nice and healthy though, so we're not in a super big rush, I'd say. We've also not decomposed a ton either. Although that being said, there is the first decompose. So I'm debating whether or not I actually want a Remembrance here, and I feel like the answer is no. I just want to like leave it in the deck. So I think that we're fine to take this. Let's go ahead and skip the Rune Chance. Or, oops, sorry. Whoops. Let's go ahead and skip the Rune Chance. Or actually, we probably should pay for the Rune Chant because this is only coming in for 2, obviously. So yeah, I think it's a little bit better to just take the Rune Chant there. I guess there's maybe an argument to also like blocking the CNC. Maybe that's better. I do want to like decompose off this. Maybe it was better to block there. Like we get an extra point of value. Although there is like some merit to leaving CNC in the deck, but I feel like maybe the better line there was just block with CNC. I almost thought I wanted to rebound this turn, but maybe that's worse. I guess we leave like 2 CNCs in the deck. Maybe this is still like largely fine, but it does feel like a little bit awkward. Right, Arsenal rebound, pass back. Oasis is definitely quite nice on the tree turn, assuming that they have an extra blue here. So they finally start drawing into some of their blues. Let's go ahead and Oasis the Rune Chant. And then I guess it's still like a little bit awkward, but I guess we have Sledge on our turn, so it doesn't really matter all that much. Let's go ahead and Oasis the Rune Chant. Pitching what here? I guess we pitch the Crumble. Put on the Rune Chant. I think we're just blocking with the E-Strike here. We blocked the Rune Chant, right? Yeah, we target the Rune Chant. Okay, so we can skip the Rune Chant safely. Then just block with the E-Strike here, send Sludge for 6. Still really just in the crumble waiting room. Did we shuffle at some point? I feel like we haven't, right? So our chances of drawing into it are pretty high at this point, I feel like. Although maybe we pitched one earlier and I wasn't paying attention. Who knows? I feel like I didn't really get the opportunity to see one, or at least not that I remember. We are somehow getting them to like sub 18. I feel like that's more so on the weakness of their hands more than the strength of my hands. I think there is also merit to running like 83 in this matchup for Tree, but a lot of the time Tree is just gonna like deal the damage anyways, so I don't know. I feel like in certain like if you know the Florian is on like stack Florian, it gets a bit better because Tree plus Scepter obviously is quite good. Wait, Scepter's still legal, right? Keegan, is Scepter still legal?
Scepter's banned.
Oh, Scepter's banned. Oh, so I don't even have to worry about Scepter anymore. So yeah, I guess Scepter doesn't really exist. So here I think maybe just go ahead and pitch like the heart and then just block with the sink below. Could also decompose here if we really want to. Maybe that's actually better. We have good decompose targets. We have the pulse plus the root bound, so I actually think I like decomposing maybe a little bit here. It does open us up to getting purgatoried, but I think that's a risk I'm willing to take. I don't think it's the end of the world here to lose a sink below. Get rid of the CNC there. I think we're just decomposing there mostly for the value. They will get to keep Tree around another turn, which is quite scary though. All right, keep sludging away. Sludge has been doing a decent bit of work, but I still am just looking for the way to get rid of the grasp, which is what I'm more so scared of. We do have like one more turn-ish, in which case, like when they start double triggering grasp, that's when I'm like really scared. All right, so we found the frozen, but no ice card. Can maybe filter with the sink below though. Sink below can maybe help us find the ice card we need. So this will be an E-Strike for 7 and a 4 rune chant. So we'll take the 4 rune chant. And I think our plan is to sink. And then we can also like imposing for like we have a lot of options even if we whiff off the sink. So I think I'm just gonna go for the sink and maybe just try to sink the shelter away. There are some clunky draws that we can draw, but sink below I guess is also fine. So this does give us another look if we want. I guess the question is like, do we want to get rid of imposing here? Let's take the risk of trying to find like another ice card. Oh, we found another ice card. Fantastic. There is like a little bit of risk to that play, but if we draw like any red or like anything we pitch, we can obviously sledge and then like Arsenal the Frozen, and that's perfectly fine as well. All right, so let's take the opportunity to get rid of the Frozen, or get rid of the grasp rather. And then let me take a look at the list. Am I running the one of seeds in this list? I had a version of the list where I was running 1 seeds, but I think this is not that list. So instead, I think here we're not going to Arsenal the Frozen and just hold it in hand. Yeah, there was a version I was tinkering around with just like a 1 of seeds in the deck just to like play towards. But I think I cut that just because it like kind of didn't fit with the overall game plan. All right, 3 Gogan on this. I think that's fine. We do have our Tunic Sludge coming up. So you just fire that off and then maybe try to Arsenal Sigil. I do want to start like getting my life total a little bit lower just so you are able to kind of capitalize on those. All right, here comes the felling as well. So I think here I actually don't mind just like bottoming the sigil. Save it for later when the life totals are maybe a little bit more precarious. I think here we're just going to block with these two and then just pull Tunic, Descent Sledge. We did accomplish our goal of finding Frozen to Death, although a little, just barely in time, I'd say. Just before the 8th Decompose or the 8th Earth card in bin. So that has me feeling a little bit good, although Germinate still is just a very, very scary card. All right, we got the Everbloom. Putting another Everbloom. So they're going to try to go for some late game value here. What do we want to do? Might honestly just supposed to we might be supposed to just like take this and then just like send felling bottom the green arsenal to rootbound. It does open us up to purgatory, although this when this defense together with a non-attack attack action card and non-attack discards a card and you draw a card. So the problem, so this would be a funny play. What we could theoretically do is like discard the Fiddler's Green to face Purgatory if they go for that next turn. But the problem is obviously Reaping Blade. So I think that's probably not necessary. I think here, honestly, I maybe am just gonna try to play around Purgatory and not get super greedy. I think we'll just not decompose here, get another Earth in the bin, and then just go to no cards in hand with Felling. I think that's fine. Guess we might as well show them in case they have like random what's that card called? The one that pings you on your turn. I don't think anyone ever plays that card, but I've seen weirder things. Sigil of Suffering, thank you. I've seen weirder things on Talishar. Like I think that's a card you shouldn't play in Florian, but who knows? Maybe they are, and I look like a genius by pitching one here. All right, not a genius today. I imagine they're probably just gonna like single D-react or double D-react this. I feel like we're in kind of an okay spot here. Don't want to speak too soon, obviously, because this matchup can just get scary out of nowhere. This is going to be a pretty big turn from them. So we can Cadaverous, pitching a Germinate, with the Bramble Spark on it. Get a little additional Decompose here as well. They would have to banish an Everbloom, though, which is maybe actually pretty decent for us. They still have more Everblooms, obviously, in the deck, but I actually don't mind seeing that. So let's pay 0 here. Let them have that 1 arcane damage. I think here I maybe just like E-striking. Actually, we should probably E-strike, putting the seal up on the bottom and then just sink below this. Go ahead and just use our reacts up. They get a little bit worse towards the late game. I think I'll just leave it like this. We're bottoming the card anyways to the E-strike, so I feel like holding on to something doesn't really matter a ton. But yeah, we now need to try to pressure them so they aren't able to freely play out Germinate as much as they want to. If we can get them to the point where they're having to go with like a card in hand every turn and they can't like play out Germinate, I feel like that will be ideal for us. All right, we do have an Oakenhold here. We want to try to get greedy. They do still have the entirety of their bark skin up though. So that means the likelihood of this getting blocked. They have 4 here. They make 2 embodiments, so they block an additional 2. So they can actually just block it on board if we try to go for the Oaken. So honestly, maybe just like pitching here and then like blocking with our 2 Earth card, like blocking with me like these 2, and then like pitching the Eisen for later off to Sledge. So I think here we're actually just going to ditch the Oaken. We could also block with it. That actually might be better. Let's maybe pitch to let's pitch the Imposing, block with the Oaken, because we can always get our Oaken back later. Like we don't have much fodder in the bin to begin with. So let's go ahead and pitch the Imposing here. Take our 1 Rune Chant, and then I think we're gonna block 6 on the Cadaverous. They are definitely starting to get to the point where they're grinding out a bit, but we still do have that pretty nice life buffer, plus we're ahead on at least sledging. We are ahead on deck, which is also good, though I don't know how much deck really matters against Florian, especially just like with how much value Germany can hit in the end game. We are getting to a nice point here where we're taking a bunch of cards out of hand every turn. All right, a little bit of an awkward hand for Fiddler's Green. I almost wonder if you're maybe supposed to just like cut this in this matchup. I feel like that probably makes a fair bit of sense. I feel like maybe leaving this in the matchup where you're expecting to run into Reaping Blade is maybe setting yourself up for a little bit of failure. It's not that bad here though. Like we can just we can like Everbloom. Well, we can't even really get a ton of value out of Everbloom. Let's I guess just block with it just for the sake of it. We're not getting the value, obviously, but that's fine. And then we can just like Felling. Yeah, it seems whatever. I don't think you should probably bring this card in this matchup. I think I probably just didn't think very hard about it. I guess if you're behind, maybe it feels a little bit better. All right, keep playing around the Purgatory. And I didn't also check our Decompose, but I assumed we probably had a fair bit. It looks like we do. Get rid of the Alms Touch. Everbloom, we can like their Everbloom loop is like better than ours, so I feel like ours is less valuable. So maybe getting rid of one of them makes sense, and we'll get rid of like random Cranial. I think here, if we can just get them into a blocking pattern, Germinate becomes a lot less scary. Seems like maybe I have like Reactor 2 here. Yep, seems like double react. Pretty good. But yeah, we want to try to basically get them to a point where they can't afford to play out Germinate. One opportunity I'm going to look for in the next couple turns is an excuse to use our armor. Because it feels like up until this point we haven't really been presented with a great opportunity to use them, and we don't want to just like get blown up by like random arcane damage from nowhere. So I think here can't unfortunately like tear us under the sludge. Could just like overpitch and try to set up could try to set up like Oaken in Arsenal. So maybe we actually want to like hold on to the Oasis here and just send 6. And then if they want to go for the discard, we discard like Oasis and hold on to the Oaken. I feel like that's the line I maybe see. What we could also do is Arsenal the Oasis so that we're dodging disruption, because they did just block with a CNC and a Plow Under, which means they're probably playing something better than those two, right? Like maybe another Felling. We've only seen one Felling so far, so we're probably overdue for one. If that's the case, I think we're still supposed to sit on the Oasis in Arsenal. It's close between the two. All right, so I did correctly call the Felling. So that's fine. We can actually just like double Oasis here, go off tempo, and like bottom the Fiddler screen for later. I'm now realizing that you like almost certainly should just like get rid of this card in this matchup. One interesting thing is I think you can actually target yourself with Coronet Peak and discard it if you want to like force that effect on your turn, like instead of your like opponent controlling that. That is another interesting piece of tech that I realize is that Coronet Peak is a target. So here, let's go ahead and just like double Oasis. We're not getting like the full value here, but I think that's fine as long as we're setting up the Oaken. All right, we'll hit that Felling. And we'll just Arsenal the Oaken and pass. Do have to be a little bit scary if they do like a go wide turn here with like a Heroic or something. Yeah, this could be definitely a pretty big turn from them. So let's now, I think now is the opportunity to start trying to use our armor. So how many CNCs and Plow Unders have we seen? I guess like the Plow Under we can't really do much about, but we can block CNC. So I feel like what we should really be focused on is how we're going to block CNC. We can block it pretty easily with just our hand as it is. So I think here we're actually just supposed to give armor, and then like the follow-up we block, although so attack action. So the heroic would apply to the CNC. So you need to be careful about that. So what is a compromise here? Maybe we give up gauntlets. Does that let us block CNC? Not fully. I feel like maybe the answer is we're just supposed to take 4 here. So that, like, if we want to, we can block 10 on a CNC and then still send an Oaken. All right, just a Gloom Veil. So now we don't have to worry about CNC. What we might have to worry about is just like another 0 for 4 or something. Or maybe like an Arcade Seeds or whatever. In which case, what do we want to do? Maybe we'll give up Gauntlets plus like the Oaken here. I actually kind of want to like hold on to the other Oaken. Maybe we give up like actually the Felling here. Maybe that's more impactful. Or less impactful than the Oaken. Especially when we can like IP with the Crumble and then like Arsenal the other one. But I think here we're actually just like giving up the Coronet Peak just to cash in a bit of that value. I think this makes sense. They're going to keep their heroic runner for a turn, but they do have to find a way around the Oakenolds, and they can't Purgatory us, which is another thing I just realized. So I think this is actually fine. Let's go ahead and use the one from Arsenal. And then we just IP with the Crumble Oaken. I feel like this makes sense, although there's a good chance that this first Oaken's not going to hit, which is fine. If we're forcing an Arcane Seeds out of them, I think I'm also happy with that. All right, go ahead and arsenal the Oaken and pass. Still have 6 block here. Felling is definitely scary, although the heroic will not stay around for another turn, so that's nice. So I think here we're just having to banish a cranial or put a cranial back in the deck. We take a fair bit of damage, but now we can probably connect with this other Oaken. I feel like there's even merit to just like take not trying to go for the Oaken here. I feel like the Oaken is like decent value though. Maybe the Crumble is like actually, or like maybe the Sledge is actually a better return. Because we can like block 6, send 6, and that might be better than the Oaken, because the Oaken might not kill is the issue. Obviously, we'll have to like discard cards in hand. I feel like I'm probably still supposed to go for the Oaken, and maybe we just give up the Gauntlet charge here, just to stay a little bit healthy. It's definitely still a scary position to be in, I think. I don't fully like the spot I put myself in here. And just like that, like Florian hits like a go wide turn with heroic. You can definitely just kind of fall behind a little bit here. So we'll go ahead and try to go for the Oaken ult. I feel like it still makes sense to at least take 3 cards out of them, because if they're just sending Reaping Blade, then we can start like really putting the pressure on. So they do have the potential to block like 6 off the Bark Skin. All right, just going for the shelter. Or maybe we want to do something different. All right, gonna go for the shelter. So we get him down to 2 life. And the question is, do we want to hold on to the Crumble? So you've seen all of our Oaken ults, all of our Fellings. Crumble's not getting much better, but maybe we just want to guarantee we have a blue for next turn. So I don't think arsenaling makes a ton of sense. But we do have the Terra Sunder, which is nice. But they do have a Gloom Veil coming for 3. So the Terra Sunder still works here. I don't think it kills, though, because they can still always just block 1 plus 2 embodiments plus a 3 block, which is 6. So we would at least strip the cards out of hand, assuming that that's the best they can block. So yeah, I think we just block 3 with the... I guess we probably want to hold on to the Glacial. Maybe we block with the Imposing instead. I feel like that makes a bit more sense, maybe. Yeah, just like that, like this game just like becomes very, very close. Make sure I'm not miscounting. Yep. Like Florian just has like a ton of like late game potential. We're kind of getting to the point now where we're denying them a bit of that, hopefully. Like if we can prevent them from setting up a Germinate, I think that's a pretty big deal. And it seems like they're gonna block with 1 here. Well, they are also gonna gain a bunch of life off these or I guess they're not gonna gain. Oh, they should have. I think they ordered that wrong, right? Shouldn't they have gained the fruits first? Because they're not getting any life off their Reaping Blade. Kind of interesting. So how many Diriacs do we think we have left in the deck? We have the 3 shelters gone. We have not seen any sync blows, but we do have the root bounds, and there's maybe like 1 yellow root bound left. So maybe they're not on syncs to begin with. So if that's the case, we maybe just want to take the opportunity to sledge. Like I feel like the CNC doesn't actually matter all that much. We'd rather just like remembrance back. Honestly, probably our Fellings at this point. I feel like the Okens are not going to be super impactful, especially when we're in an end game where we've effectively denied them. We're going to be denying them from keeping a full hand every turn. So I feel like it makes a fair bit of sense here to just get back the Fellings instead. They still have their 1 or no, they're out of Fellings as well, and they have maybe 1 Plow Under left, and then a couple, maybe 1 CNC as well. I think we saw that pitch as well. Let's go on Remembrance. Let's get back the 2 Fellings. We can also get back an Oaken. That might be a little greedy. How many Crumbles have we seen? Still have a lot of Crumbles in the deck too. Maybe we do get back 1 Oaken. We get 2 Fellings and an Oaken. So I think we bottom to Crumble. I feel like this makes sense. Let's not get super greedy and do like multiple Okens. Let's just keep like 2 Felons, 1 Oken. I think that seems reasonable. Right, there's the CNC, which we saw coming. That's fine though. So here we do need to block 8, which is unfortunate, but we can at least send CNC back. Does mean we have to block with one of our Fellings, but that's fine. We'll leave the Crumble in the deck. I think this makes sense still. Should we have blocked with that Everbloom, actually? Maybe actually the block was not the Everbloom in case we needed to start gaining life, but we're at a point now where neither player is going to be gaining a ton of life. So if there's any punt I made this game, I think the punt was just like bringing in the Fiddler's Green. I think I just forgot that in sideboarding. That's okay though. I think I just like have not played this matchup in a while because like Florian's been basically a dead deck, right? Like people basically just like dropped him once Gravy started running amok. All right, if we can just keep forcing them off cards here, I think we're going to be in pretty okay shape. So they're gaining a life here, which will also enable our fruits this turn, which is nice. And then we can just like send Sludge here. So I think we've done a pretty decent job here of navigating at least. I think we navigated the mid game quite well. I think they had some turns that they stumbled, which we were able to kind of capitalize on. Let's go ahead and get our little couple points of life value and then just send in with the Sludge. We're also going to be sitting on the 1 of Oaken that we brought back, which is also fantastic. Probably a pretty good spot to draw it in. It seems like there's the last yellow Rootbound, which I think we called as well. So what other threats do they have left in the deck? They have maybe... How many Heroics have we seen? I think you just pitch one, right? So we have one more Heroic to deal with, but I don't even think we care about that. Obviously, the Germinates are still left in the deck. Those are scary. But beyond that, I don't think there's a ton. So this hand is interesting. We can maybe just go for a Terrace Under Lethal here. I think that's maybe the best use of our time. Good. What life gain do they have left? Maybe just like Everblooms. Have we seen? We've seen all their Everblooms as well, so their Everblooms are also gone. So I feel like we might just take the opportunity to get greedy here and like Terrace Under an Oaken. We also could just like Terrace Under Sledge for 1 less value. I think this is still fine though. Let's just Terrace Under Sledge, I think. Like Oaken obviously could... I'm trying to think if it matters. Like, do they have any fruits left? Is I guess maybe a question we should ask. We've seen 2 fruits in the banish and a 3rd fruit. So unless they're running like red fruits, which I don't think we've seen, then I feel like it just makes more sense to Sledge Terrace Under. I guess there's maybe an argument. I feel like I actually like putting on the Oaken more. And the reasoning being is because they could have D-React in Arsenal. Yeah, it seems like we maybe got him here. I don't know if it would have mattered because I think we are also out of D-Reacts at this point. Yeah, I think our Florian opponent here did have some unfortunate variants, which is like a bunch of all-red hands, especially in the early game where it mattered. And I feel like the Decompose was also quite slow this game. Yeah, I think that there are a couple things that just like did not line up super well for our opponent here. All right, just barely got there. So Germany is the scary card, especially in the late game, but I feel like we somehow managed to race them with our fatigue deck to get to them to the point where they basically like could not set up a Germinate without just like taking a bunch of damage, obviously. So I feel like we actually navigated that pretty well or pretty okay. I think that maybe things just like didn't line up super well for them. All right, so I think that's going to wrap it up today. So this is going to be my prediction Jarl list for the upcoming Super Slam set. I think that there's a lot of ideas here that I want to try to tweak a little bit. Like I do still think that if you're trying to build like a more fatigue style Jarl list, there is a bit of tension between like the Earth package and just like the kind of like normal fatigue package. I'm trying to see if there's like some balance you can strike where you can still get the opportunity to run Felling of the Crown. But I do think that maybe this card is just like a trap in the more fatigue builds. I can also probably acknowledge that. Yeah, but we're going to be experimenting with this. I also want to try to get some more testing into burdens at some point. I'll see if I can try to capture some games, although those games also go quite long. But yeah, hope you all enjoyed the Jarl content. I know that a lot of people appreciate kind of like the slower, more grindier matchups. So hope you all enjoyed that. I think that for the most part, like we did pretty well with this list. I think that there's some sideboarding things I still need to kind of work through, but that's something to work on another time. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time. And a special thank you to all the folks who decided it would be a good idea to give us $2 on Patreon. We really appreciate the support, but it's obviously never required.